Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cap and Trade. I am your host, Texans Cap. Welcome in, man. It's been a while. Been a while indeed. Glad to see everybody here. But it's been a while. Been a while since we've been on the video, especially on a live stream. Just been, life gets in the way sometimes. Busy. Work staying busy. Family life staying busy. But it felt like, tonight was a good night to hop on the stream and just have a little chat with everybody, see how everybody's going. I got a few things I wanted to talk about tonight, but before we get to all that, I just want to remind everybody to make sure you subscribe to the newsletter, capandtrade.football. Seen a lot of growth over there. Been very happy with all the support that I'm getting from everybody, and it's just the subscriber growth continues to go up, and we continue to produce content over there, and I'll continue doing so this summer, heading into training camp, and we'll just continue what we're doing. If you have any specific topics or something you want me to cover on the newsletter in the written form, just let me know. Send me an email, troy@overthecap.com, and I will do what I can to do that. So tonight, kind of just a few things I wanted to cover. I know the Nico Collins extension is kind of old news in terms of NFL life cycles with news reports and everything, but I finally just now got a hold of the contract workbook. Usually I get those within about a week or so of contracts being signed, but the source of getting those has been a little slow over the summer. So we finally got a hold of the book, and I've had 99% of the details, prior to tonight. But I'd like to actually see the actual signed contract itself, so I can just double check some things, make sure everything's 100% accurate, and I just want to make sure I had that. So I do have that. Finally got it yesterday. So we'll talk about that. Just kind of look at a few comparisons and things like that. I want to kind of talk about Trevor Lawrence and the extension that he received with Jacksonville. I know it's not specifically Texans news, but we don't always just cover just the Texans here. But just got a few things I want to talk about that, and then just need some final thoughts for the Texans heading into training camp. Still got about 6 weeks before training camp starts, but this is kind of the dead zone of the calendar with the NFL. It's I always like to say it's the NFL calendar is 11 months of busyness and 1 month of slowness. So right now we're in the slowness. And then if we got any questions, comments, throw them up on the board. If you can, put a Q in front if you have a question. That way I can kind of search quickly by those, because if you just type out your questions, sometimes they get lost in the comments and things like that. So that's kind of what we're looking at talking about tonight. Good to see you, Tony. I am not watching the game. Obviously, I'm not, but I don't really watch NBA too much. But just watching, kind of the news on social media, it sounds like it's not much of a competition in terms of the Celtics whooping up on the Mavericks. So, but welcome in. Good to see you, buddy. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. So, first up, let's talk about Nico Collins. So, let's swap over to the screen share. We'll hop over here to Over the Cap. So, yeah, Nico, like we saw, got 3-year extension, which has kind of become the norm for the Houston Texans with any players that are star-level players, things like that. We saw it with Dalton Schultz, we saw it with Shaq Mason, Laramie Tunsil, multiple players. That kind of just seems to be, other than Titus Howard, who got a 4-year deal, but everybody else just seems to be hitting that 3-year number. And Seth Payne and Sean Pendergast, when they had Nick Caserio on earlier this week, I think maybe it was on Monday, maybe it was last Friday, asked him about that, and it just kind of reiterates of the team, and they look at it as in 2-year windows, so a 3-year extension kind of lets them plan out a little bit ahead. But there's just really no reason for them to go beyond 3 years in terms of, with the way the life cycle is of players and contracts these days. It's just have a set end date. It's just easier for them to manage in that perspective. It benefits the player, lets them get back to free agency quicker to get another bite at the apple with a big contract. Lets the team know emphatically when this player's contract's going to end versus 4 or 5 year deal that then you start getting questions in the back of the contract. So, but yeah, so it was 24.25 APY. So that's on just new money APY. He's got guaranteed salary in 2024 this year, guaranteed salary in 2025 this year, and then he's got some vesting schedules on this $20 million here in 2026. So the way that's going to work is on the 5th day of the league year in 2025, which will be around March 18th. We don't know the start of the league year just yet, but it's usually around March 13th, 14th, 15th, somewhere in there. So around March 18th, $10 million of that $20 million will become guaranteed, fully guaranteed for skill, cap, and injury. Right now, it's just guaranteed for injury. So less than a year from now, in March of 2025, he's going to have an additional $10 million guaranteed in 2026. So it's a year early vesting period, which is I was kind of surprised he didn't get the full $20 million fully guaranteed up front, fully guaranteed in the first year, like instead of the $10 million here. But that, maybe that was a good compromise between the two sides to have half of it guarantee a year early and then the remainder the following year. So, and then the following year in 2026, the last $10 million become guaranteed. So this guaranteed slot here, this number will change to $10 million come March of 2025, and then we'll change up to $20 million. So he's going to get what he had fully guaranteed was $32 million at signing. So by March of 2025, he's going to have $42 million guaranteed. It's a virtual guarantee. I mean, there's no way they're going to release him a year into before he even gets to the new money in this contract. So, so that it's pretty standard, with these high-level player contracts with that kind of vesting schedule. That's usually a big sticking point is when that vesting schedule is going to happen. Like a comparable situation was the Amari Cooper situation with Dallas. He did not get a year early vesting schedule on that third year of the deal. And, it was pretty widely panned by most people that they did not secure that at signing. And, it ended up leading towards a trade and things like that. But getting that year early vesting schedule really benefits the player to get that assurance a year in advance versus having to wait until year of. So, I mean, overall, it's a pretty standard, straightforward contract. Roster bonuses in here. He's got some incentives. Let's see here. Go back here into the premium player summary. He does have some incentives here. So if he gets a Pro Bowl in each year of the contract, then he can earn $250,000. And then he's got to get 95 receptions for another $250,000 and 1,460 receiving yards to get another. So he's got $750,000 in available incentives in each year of the contract, 2024 through 2026. And then he has some per game roster bonuses. Yeah. It's an odd number, 625,005. I was really surprised at that number. I mean, they could have just put this number at 22,250. I honestly don't know why. I mean, that looks like something Les Snead would do with Los Angeles. I mean, he always likes to do palindromes and tie in weird numbers to, whether it's the player jersey or the year they were born, zip code that they were born in. He does all kinds of crazy stuff like that. So not exactly sure why they could have made this just 625,000 instead of the 5 in there, but maybe one day Nick will tell us why they did that. But, the contract does have the ability to have, a restructure next year if they do need it, because they are pretty tight on cap space in 2025. So, I mean, this money's already guaranteed, so they could easily just come in here and do a basic restructure to convert this money and bring his base salary down to the minimum for his years of service, which I think would be 1.125, somewhere in there, and convert the rest of that money into signing bonus and push it out over the last 3 years. They maybe could even talk him into tacking on a void year or something like that. But just a basic restructure of converting that money into a signing bonus. Houston has those automatic conversion rights. They put that in majority of their veteran player contracts. Nico Collins' contract does have that automatic conversion right. So they don't need his permission to do that conversion. They will add an addendum to the contract, which is just a one page saying, hey, we're making this conversion. It's an accounting function. The player doesn't earn money up front. That's a common misunderstanding. He's not earning, that $12.25 million. He's not getting a check for that early on when they do that conversion. It's just part of his base salary. It's literally just an accounting function of the salary cap to reallocate where that money goes. So they'll have that option. They can save up a pretty good chunk of money with that kind of conversion in 2025. Let's see here. Where's the calculator? Let's see how. Well, okay, there it goes. Let's go to 2025. There's Nico. So we can change this to a restructure. That's a maximum restructure, so they would restructure 12.33. So you see his salary cap figure dropped almost $4 million from let's see here. What was it? Oh, it was 18,375. So they can save 8.7 million, 8.6 million in cap dollars with just a restructure with Nico Collins next year. So that's one area for them to look at. And then wanted to look at some of his cash flows. So this is in the back end, the premium section of Over the Cap. I want to pull some of these players out. I'll pull up Metcalf. So I just want to look at some of the recent signings. So the running cash flow, all these were extensions with these players. So just by comparison, just so you can kind of see, especially when you see how big Justin Jefferson's deal is, and by comparison. So Nico Collins in year one, which is actually 2025, because that's the first year of the extension. We at Over the Cap, we count year zero as the previous. So 2024 he was already under contract for 2024. He got a 3-year extension starting in 2025. So we count 2024 as year zero. That way, it's in line with players that don't do extensions, and it's if it was just a free agent signing where they have their money starts year one. This way, it's an apples to apples comparison. But you can see Nico Collins has $30.25 million through year one, which is right up there with Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's actually more than Devontae Smith, which is pretty wild. That contract is got some pretty heavy back end. Let's It's pretty close to Jalen Waddle, just under him. He's at 33. But look at Justin Jefferson at 50.25 million through year one. I mean, that's just a massive number. Massive number. Yeah, look, Justin Jefferson's at 50 through year one, and Nico is at 50.8 in year two. So he's like a year behind him in cash flow. But he's pretty well in line with the other players. He's right on top of Devontae Smith again. St. Brown starts to run away from him a little bit. Jalen Waddle starts to run away from him a little bit, and that's where things just kind of get away from him. But that's just a kind of important number to look at when you're valuing these contracts. We'll look at Trevor Lawrence cash flow a little bit later, but that cap numbers, that's cool and all, but I really like to look at their effective APY adjusted for inflation APY, and I really like to look at cash flows. I like to really see how much money that player is getting, because you see Devontae Smith, just a little bit higher on APY at 25 compared to Collins. Or actually, you know what? Take that. We'll look at Amon St. Brown at 30 APY, Nico Collins at 24. But you see through year one, he's only making a little over $1 million more than Nico. So 12 months into the deal, they're right on top of each other, even though they have a big difference in APY. So that's a good indicator for the cash flow for Collins. Now, like we said, he kind of takes off a little bit, but when you compare him to, say, Jalen Waddle, he's $7 million behind him, but Jalen Waddle has got a 28.25. So it's a pretty strong cash flow. I mean, it's only a 3-year deal, but by all means, it's a good, strong cash flow number. And then one other thing I like to look at is the effective value, this column here. And what that is it's another way. Effective value is also could be called paper value or paper APY. Effective APY. So paper value, effective APY, that's the full length of the contract. So he got a 3-year extension. He had 1 year remaining on his rookie contract. So it's a 4-year deal where his effective APY is 18.9. So that's how the team's going to look at it, right? Yes, they signed a 3-year extension for new money APY of $24.25 million, but the team is also going to look at it as this is a 4-year deal at $18.9 million per year. Once we account for his previous money that he was going to earn, and it's just the total value. So 3 years plus the previous year, add all that money up, and we get this total value. So effective APY is 18.9. That's how teams will look at it. Look at Jalen Waddle, 20.9. I mean, he's actually got a better effective APY than Devontae Smith. And the reason why their effective APYs are so much lower, look at Amon-Ra, that's 24. It's because Jalen Waddle and Devontae Smith were first-round draft picks, right? So they had bigger salaries remaining. Plus, they had the option years as well that were already in place so they already had scheduled guaranteed money up front coming in on the rookie contract. So their effective APY comes in pretty low. So that is why teams will try to sign their players early. They're not really worried about new money. New money is a way to compare free agents and extensions in the same realm. It's a good thing for agents to report on because it's a bigger number. But teams are looking at it as the effective APY. So, by comparison, these teams have gotten Jalen Waddle for $20.9 million APY, Devontae Smith $18.79 APY, Nico Collins $18.9. Got fantastic value when they're at those kinds of numbers. And that's how the teams are going to look at these deals. And that's how they're going to look at all their deals is what are we paying APY over the life of the contract? Nico Collins at 18.9 is a great number. I think because if he were to hit the open free market, let's say Houston didn't sign his extension and he made it to free agency next year, he would easily get. And let's just say he replicated his 2023 performance, right? Had another 1,400 yards receiving, stayed healthy, played 15 games. Let's just say he replicated all that. He would be easily close to $30 million a year, if not more, on the open market. And now the team, and so if they were just signing straight up free agent, it's a hard APY. The effective APY and the new money APY would be the same. So they would have, a team would have him at 30 plus million. But by signing him a year early, they have an effective APY of 18.96. So it's great value for the team to get this. So I know there was a lot of conjecture on local radio of why would you sign Nico Collins early? Why would you wait a year to make him prove it? I get all that. But it's worth the risk when you can get him at 18.9 million APY effectively versus paying him a true $30 million a year on a free agency contract next year. So while the new money APY of 24.25 is a big number, look at it at paper APY, the effective APY. That's where the team finds value. That's why the team signs him a year early, is to get that effective value over the life of the contract. So one thing I wanted to look at was some of the metrics for big man here. So let me go to image share. All right, so I got some different graphs metrics that we're gonna do here. This first one is yards per route versus targets per route. And yards per route is a very common metric used. Literally receiving yards divided by number of routes run. It's a good efficiency marker to, measure the performance of the player, right? This is a scatter chart here, or scatter plot. And so upper right quadrant is where you want to be, because that's where yards per route's bigger number and targets per route bigger number. If you're asking who that is at the top right, it's not hard to figure out. That's Tyreek Hill. But, I think it's pretty fair whenever, let me turn on my Pro Mouse here. So if you were to just draw lines, oof. I forgot how to do that. Okay. So if you were to draw lines, why does it do that? It's moving the whole screen. I wish it wouldn't do that. Oh, well. Well, if you were to draw lines like this, all right, so there you would see that Nico Collins is the second most efficient wide receiver when looking at it from yards per route and targets per route. That's an amazing number. That's great to see. So that's where you want to see him continue to show up on this chart in 2024. Let's see here. Let me find a different one. this one's interesting because this is what Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans were talking about back at the Combine, the owners' meetings. They were big up on first down, getting first downs, finding receivers that get first downs. And Stephon Diggs is very good at that as well. But Nico Collins, when you look at target rate, and this is just on third downs, his first down rate was at 15%. And I think that's, you can see that. I mean, that's a top 10 number among wide receivers. And his target rate is very high, top 6. And so, again, upper right, you see that angle going up. That's where you want him to. That's where you want to see him. And I don't think that's going to change for 2024. I think he's still going to be the primary. But that's where you want to see him. And you look at all these metrics. Here's another one. This is yards per route run in single and double coverage. I threw all the Texans players on there just for reference. But this is, again, up and to the right is where you want to be. His yards per route run in double coverage is top 6. His yards per route run in single coverage is 4th highest. I mean, he was just a man. He was just stellar when he got man coverage. But, I mean, you can look at all these numbers. And, obviously you can look at film as well. But you look at all these numbers, and it just showcases why he received that contract extension. Here's another one, yards per route run versus the first read. This is a manually charted information from Fantasy Points. Up and to the right, again, it's where you want to see. And he was the first read. And I should have put the other Texans players on here just for reference. But I think he still has the highest first read percentage among the Texans receivers in 2023. But look at that, yards per route run. He's second highest behind Tyreek. And, his first read is solid, 28%. So CJ's looking his way quite a bit. The system is built around the X receiver of the slow offense. And Nico is going to get a lot of first looks, and it's going to continue in 2024. Let's see what else we have in here. I brought a bunch of charts. Oh, this one was a fun one. This was yards after catch, so yak, and we know Nico Collins was a yak machine versus separation at reception. So this was GPS data from NGS of how close the defender was to him and yards. So just right at 3 yards of separation, but had top 6 in yards after catch. And this is per attempt, so this is a rate, not total. But look at Noah Brown there, right there with him. So really excited for Noah Brown if he can remain healthy. I think he's going to be fantastic depth on the offensive group. The wide receiver group. And one last one. So receiving yards over expected is another NGS stat. I put all the wide receivers that either signed deals this offseason that were notable, and then I included Brandon Ayuk and CeeDee Lamb because they're next in line to get contract extensions. And just kind of wanted to put them on there so you can kind of see where Nico Collins ranks. And with Nico Collins being the, I think, 9th highest paid wide receiver now after the Justin Jefferson and Jalen Waddle deals, and he'll be outside of the top 10 once CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk sign, and Jamar Chase next year. So I mean, it won't be long. Nico Collins will be like 12th or 13th highest paid in terms of new money APY. But just by comparison, you see all those other players on this chart. It's pretty fair where his contract is, right? Seventh, eighth or ninth highest paid. That's pretty fair placement on this chart compared. So, that's exciting to see that the numbers, the contract numbers, the contract value kind of lines up with where his receiving performance is. And this is, forgot to highlight, this is 2021 to 2023. So this is not just 2023 data. This is 3 years of data. And we know Nico Collins had a rough first 2 years. So he is right there on top of them. So that's exciting to see. And I think it was, like I said, I think it was a fair, very, very fair contract. I think it was a very fair contract. It was right where it needed to be. And definitely have no complaints about it. I think, and I truly think he's going to be a force this coming this coming year. So I'm excited to see that. Tony's got a question here. Will Tyreek get another mega deal? He's in his 30s. That's a good one because he's already yabbing about having a new contract, and his is a funky, fluffed up deal. It's not a true $30 million APY deal. It's fluffed up on the back end, like $42 million or something. So he's already yammering for a new contract. Miami shouldn't touch it. I don't know. I would like to see another year out of Tyreek, but you got to feel like that's the type of player that has a quick crash, right? It goes from being one of the most explosive and exciting players to disappointing. So I don't know. I don't know that maybe they do like a Band-Aid kind of deal like they did like Arizona did with DeAndre Hopkins. Maybe you just kind of move some money forward to just not really change the APY of the deal, but he's due, I think, like $42 million in 2026. And so maybe you just kind of shift some of that money up into 2024 and 2025 to give him a little more money now. That maybe be the best Band-Aid, but I just don't see him getting a whole new contract with big money again. So, all right. So that is Nico Collins. So we'll jump back over the cap here. I wanted to take a look at Trevor Lawrence's deal. Let me go to contract history. It was $55 million per year. And so what this is this contract history page. And it's sorted by APY, which is new money or free agent money, in terms of percentage of the cap at signing. And this is a good way to measure historical contract value. Joe Burrow is at top at 24.5%. He signed for $55 million last year. Trevor Lawrence signed for $55 million this year, but the cap grew quite a bit. So his, as a percentage of the cap, is 21.5%. What we're doing is we're literally just taking the APY and dividing that by the league cap that year. So just take it as what is it, 22.44? See, I've already purged out. Yeah, 255.4. So you take that 55 divided by the 255.4 and you get your percentage number. So just to show you, yeah, he tied for the highest paid quarterback, but in terms of APY percentage of the cap, he's like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. He's 10th behind players that signed their deals in 2 and 3 years ago. But Trevor Lawrence is definitely going to be that quintessential player. It's like danged if you do, danged if you don't kind of situation. Is he the next Kirk Cousins where he's top of the market pay, but just can't quite break through that barrier to the next level? I don't know. I mean, time will tell. He makes some fantastic plays, fantastic throws. He's got a cannon of an arm, and sometimes he seems to put a little too much heat, not enough air under the ball. But I mean, he had some fantastic throws this year, and I think there was a video montage by Ian Hartitz of a lot of the plays that should have been but weren't. You know, where players didn't get 2 feet and the receiver didn't get 2 feet down, they dropped the ball. Just inches, game of inches, and maybe his numbers would have been a lot better, but still think he's a very good quarterback. He's probably top 15, and he's going to be a thorn in Houston's side for years to come now that he is under contract through the 2030 season. Signed a 5-year extension. Remember, Trevor Lawrence had his option activated, so he was already under contract through 2025 on his rookie deal. So it's 5 years on top of that. They did the quadruple option bonus model. That's something that we would usually only see Philadelphia do. Excuse me. And it's just salary cap. It's salary cap way to push out some prorated money into the future. Ooh, that one almost got away from me. So he's got $35 million option bonuses in 2025, 2026, 2027, 2028. So that's where you see this guaranteed salary. Oh, you know what? I got to fix that. I put it in this contract today. I need to go in and fix his guaranteed salary numbers. That should be including the option bonus in there. But so that's why you see all this prorated money. So $7 million over 5 years, and then they start to stack to the point where he's got 4 option bonus prorations hitting there on top of the signing bonus. And so that's where you start to see this balloon payment. So really, they're going to have to make a decision in 2028. This is when they're going to have to decide: do we extend? Do we just play it out? Because they're not going to be able to do any restructures. I mean, they could do like a minor restructure in 2027 or 2028, but because they're paying out option bonuses, it's almost like pre-scheduled restructures through every year of the contract, or the first 4 years of the contract. So they're shoving a ton of money into the future. I mean, they're going to have these dead money numbers are not quite right. We're trying to fix a bug here, but I mean, 28, what is that? 49, 63, 69 million. So they got 69 million in dead money on 2029 if they didn't touch anything. They're not going to really be able to do any restructures per se. So 2028 is going to be the year that they're going to have to make the extend or stay put decision, because there's probably no way he's going to see these numbers. They'll readjust it, do an extension again or something like that if he's still playing well. But so they're basically using the big old fat credit card, the interest-free credit card, to lower all these cap numbers down: 17, 24, 35, 47. Those were relatively small cap numbers. The cap percentage is just a projection based on what we think the cap might be in those first years. But the fact that they're keeping these down 8.5%, 11% instead of it being 13, 14% like you see in a lot of quarterback contracts. Look at one you see here, look at Deshaun Watson. He's 22% of the Browns cap this year. They might restructure this one. But he's at 22, 24, and 22% as percentage of the cap. So they're at 8.5, and 11.1. But a lot of that money is shoved out into the future, like we were talking about. This 28, 21, 14, 7, that's money that they cannot take away from their salary cap. It's going to be there. So what I wanted to take a look at was his cash flow. Now, we did see that he had the same new money APY as Trevor Lawrence. As Joe Burrow at $55 million. The effective value is a little bit lower, but what I wanted to look at, their guarantees are a little bit better for Burrow, almost 8% of total guarantees. A little bit higher on full guarantee at 53%. But I wanted to show you the big difference here. Look at this cash flows. This is wild. Talk about a back-end, fluffed-up deal. Look at how far behind Trevor Lawrence is running on cash behind Joe Burrow. That is just wild. Look at that. He's $30 million back in the first 2 years. He's down, just this year alone, he's down $30 million. He's down another $30 million in 2025, and he's down $20 million in year 2. That is just wild to me. He's down $13 million in year 3 of the deal. He doesn't catch him until the end, which is they're both going to be on new contracts by then. This just bad job by. It's a fantastic job by Jacksonville. My goodness. But to be that low on cash flow by comparison, that's a bad deal, man. I get it's life-altering money. He's got $142 million fully guaranteed at signing. He's going to have a practical guarantee of close to $200. He's going to get close to $200 out of this. But let's see here. Brandon wants to say it compares to Hurts. Well, let's add Hurts on here. See, Hurts is even, and that's how the Eagles do it, man. Just like we were looking at Devontae Smith and how his cash flows are so much lower on a bigger APY deal. That's how the Eagles, man, they are fantastic at their negotiations. But look at this. Trevor Lawrence is above Hurts. He's got a much bigger APY at 55 compared to 51. But yeah, he's not really that far ahead. He's 17 million ahead here. He's 22 million, but that Joe Burrow deal is phenomenal. That just shows you how good the Burrow deal is. Look at the the cash flows are so dramatically different. That is just amazing when you look at it at that perspective of the cash flows between these three players in year 2, which is going to be 2026 for Lawrence, and then 2025 for Burrow and Hurts. That Burrow is almost $40 million more than Hurts. That's just wild to me. So that was one thing I wanted to drive home on this with the Trevor Lawrence deal, is just how crappy these cash flows were by comparison to Joe Burrow. Don't get me wrong, life-altering money, I get all that. It's a huge deal for him, and he's set for life. But objectively looking at it, they missed the mark, and they let Jacksonville rake them over the coals here. Man, oh man. Yeah, so, Beige, what's up, my man? Good to see you. Afternoon for you. Not afternoon for me, but good to see you. Jack's doing joke. Yeah, I mean, hey. Tony says, I'm more worried about the Colts than the Jags. I am too. I don't think the Colts are getting the run that they should be getting because Shane Steichen is a fantastic play caller. Fantastic play caller. It's all going to hinge on Anthony Richardson. We all know that. We understand that. You know, I mean, he already his back flared up in minicamp last week, and they didn't let him throw. And they said that it was no big deal if it was a game day he'd be playing. And I get all that, but that's just a reflection of how fragile Anthony Richardson is. But I mean, if they get 13, 14 games out of Richardson, they're going to be tough. They have a fantastic defense. That defensive line is stellar, and Arthur, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, I mean he could be great. I mean he's got the athletic ability. Houston. I mean we saw it firsthand. I mean he was just tearing Houston apart in that the first time that the Colts played Houston last season until he got hurt. Into the first quarter or something like that. But I mean, if he can get the passing game down, get his accuracy down, and start reading defenses, man, the AFC South is going to be fantastic. It's going to be fun for the next 3 or 4 years. Maybe Will Levis gets it together in Tennessee. Who knows, with Brian Callahan down there. But AFC South has always been kind of like the discarded decision or discarded division for years and years and years. And yes, I'm a Houston Texans fan, but man, it is exciting to see what the AFC South is and what it can be for the next 5+ years. It's just going to be exciting, and I am ready for it, man. I don't want easy schedules. I want it tough. I want to earn it. So, thoughts heading into training camp. Training camp's 6 weeks away. Cody Stutes had a ton of content over from OTAs and minicamp, and I didn't get to make it to mandatory minicamp. Work was quite busy, so I couldn't quite make it. But I definitely will be attending some training camp practices with the media. So I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing some of my brothers. And but I think I'm excited for the offensive line. I just want to see a healthy offensive line once, please. The last 2 years have been absolutely brutal. Just injuries left and right, having to make trades, having to claim players. I truly think that's why the team has a lot more cap space heading into camp than they usually do. Casario's usually been fine rolling into camp with $9-10 million in cap space. Right now he's at 19 and change. And I think that's a function of having tons of injuries during the preseason the last 2 years. And then ultimately he's had to go in and do restructures throughout the season just to have enough operating cap dollars for the rest of the way. So that part, that's probably my most exciting position is offensive line. I know I hope Kenyon Green can make it back. I really do. I'm like cautiously optimistic, and at this point, I don't even expect like first round return on value. I just wanted him to be a serviceable left guard. I wanted him to be a better Xavier Suafilo at this point. Um, but it's good to see there's going to be a lot of competition there at left guard between Kendrick Green, who was, he got hurt last year, but he was pretty solid at left guard for those few games he played. And then Jarrett Patterson, year 2 for him, played center last year out of necessity. But I do think those 3 players, this is going to be fantastic competition at left guard. So that's going to be one area that I'm going to be watching pretty heavily through training camp and preseason. But overall, I'm just excited to see Tytus Howard back at right tackle, Drew Scruggs at center, Shaq Mason, who quietly had a fantastic year at right guard. Just nobody really talked about it unless you just got into the nitty gritty with Brandon Thorne and those folks. But if they can stay healthy, and I was talking to a Colts guy today about it. I mean, if that offensive line can stay healthy, relatively healthy, then they have a chance to be really, really good. The run game with Mixon is going to be an interesting piece as well. And so I think we'll go back to this as well, how they use Fisher. I mean, he's going to be the swing tackle. I think he'll probably beat out Charlie Heck for it. Maybe, yeah, and Tony's the same thing. Charlie Heck, I mean, he has a small guarantee. I think it was like $625,000 or something, a very small guarantee. So they've historically have carried 9 offensive linemen. So you got to, assuming no injuries, this is all hypothetical. You got the 5 we talked about with Tunsil, Kenyon Green, Drew Scruggs, Shaq Mason, Tytus Howard. Blake Fisher makes 6. Jarrett Patterson 7. Kendrick Green 8. Then they've got, some younger players. So at that point, do you have 2 swing tackles plus the 2 interior? So if it's one of the Greens and Patterson as depth on the interior, because we know Patterson and Green can play, Kendrick Green can play center as well. He's done that. So that's why I think it's solid to have Kendrick Green and Jarrett Patterson as your depth, and then Fisher as your swing tackle. So do you carry a 4th tackle, or do you carry another interior guy? So that's going to be the question. Just kind of have to wait to see how it plays out and at camp. But nobody's really been talking about it that I've heard, and I don't listen to everything. So if people are talking about it and I haven't heard that, I apologize. But I feel like just everybody's so honed in on C.J. Stroud and the wide receiver group, things like that. I just think the offensive line is something I'm going to be very interested in watching. Another part, I think, is, and Brandon's spot on to it, the quarterback 2 spot. Okuda's hasn't looked very good in OTAs and minicamp, but let's wait, reserve our judgment. Even though I just said that he didn't look good, reserve our judgment until the pads go on, until we start seeing a little harder coverage. But it is going to be interesting to see how that plays out. There's a lot of money tied up between C.J. Henderson and Jeff Okudah. And then, Kamari Lassiter, who's actually looked fantastic through mandatory minicamp and OTAs. He, as D'Amico Ryan said, can play inside and outside. And you gotta hope that Desmond King and Miles Bryant will be able to man the slot. So I'm kind of just really wondering if we're going to see a lot of Lassiter on the outside starting. Does he beat out Okudah and Henderson? So, but I think between Henderson and Okudah, one of the two is going to make it. If Miles Bryant has any special team capability, then he would have a shot to make it as depth. Because Desmond King, as we know, can do punt return duties. But that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. How C.J. Henderson. I haven't really heard a whole lot. I saw some stuff on Okuda, but I haven't really heard much about Henderson. So I'll definitely keep an eye out for him whenever I visit training camp. But yeah, CB2 is going to be fun. I'm really excited to see Azeez Al-Shahir, the new Mike linebacker. I think between him and Christian Harris, I think that's going to be a fantastic interior linebacker crew. They'll be the two primaries when they're on sub packages, which they run quite often. Christian Harris will man the weak side, and Shahir will be the Mike, and then kind of wait to see how the strong side plays out. Maybe it's Henry To'oTo'o or somebody else, but that part I think is going to be just fun to see. I mean, we already kind of know how it's slated to roll out, but he's got a lot of experience in D'Amico Ryan's system, and as we heard and reported last year that Al-Shahir was a target for Houston during free agency before he signed with Tennessee. Nick Caserio confirmed as much during this last interview cycle that they tried to sign him last year, and he went to Tennessee before he came this year. I'd be curious to know how they missed out on him the first time around. And one thing, it's going to be fun to watch the running back crew. Yeah. Neville Hewitt is a special teams demon. That dude's he's just fantastic. Will Eric Murray make the team? We'll get back to Mixon in a second. I don't know why he's still here, but I don't know. Maybe his special teams. The special teams component is difficult to ascertain this year, and because of the new kickoff rules, you're still going to have your guys out on the gunner for punt return, but kickoff coverage is going to be drastically different. So curious to see how that plays out. What are we doing with Lane Johnson? I don't know. Wait and see what happens. I mean, it's going to be maybe depth at safety if he wants to play some safety, special teams. We'll see. We'll see what old Lonnie Johnson's up to. But yeah, and wanted to get back to Joe Mixon before we call it a night. Something I'm looking into for a newsletter coming up is Cincinnati ran a ton of shotgun formation in 2023, and that was by necessity because of Joe Burrow's calf injury. But Joe Mixon's numbers, success rate, and things like that were not that great when working under center. And Zach Taylor up there, they run that wide zone scheme, so he should be familiar with it coming down here. But we know Houston runs a lot of 21 personnel under center. Cincinnati ran a lot of 11 personnel out of shotgun. So I'm just curious to see. I want to look at the data, try to look at some film, and try to see how that's going to translate over to Houston. And I'm not saying I'm concerned. I'm more just curious, right? And I'm curious to see how Mixon's effort and work translate over to Houston, especially with him having a fullback, which I'm confident that the team's going to carry a fullback. But I'm just curious to see how that plays out. So I want to look at the data and see how that plays out. So that's one thing I want to look at for sure. And then, that's most of my thoughts on training camp. Safety positions, I'm worried about that, and interior defensive line, a little worried about that. Just have to see how things play out. Connor Barr, yeah, he did. He's progressing up the ranks in Philadelphia, man. Good for him. Bryce Johnston, way at the top of the chain. He might be an assistant GM here before long. Bryce Johnston used to work with overthecap.com and had a real nice Sloan Analytics paper on contract. I'm trying to remember what it was called, but it was contract value life, something like that. But it was a predictor of when a team might move on from a player. Abigail, yes, they did. They drafted Ladarius Henderson. He might be, I don't know that he makes the 53-man, might be a practice squad player. We'll have to wait and see what happens. Yeah, Andrew Becker of the Rams. Skronik's going to be interesting to see how they deploy him. I mean, we saw how he was used in Los Angeles. I don't know if that would be enough to move on from Andrew Beck. That's interesting. We'll have to keep an eye on that. I think they've, Skronik brought in for. I mean, it's a little bit of both. I mean, he's got a lot of experience in this system, and I think the team is in a position to be able to just really build on their depth and really challenge positions in training camp. I mean, you can't do it at every single position, but we see wide receiver is going to be chock full of competition. You're going to have, I think Noah Brown's a lock, so I think that's your four players between Collins, Tank, Diggs, and Noah Brown. But after that, for that fifth spot, if they just carry 5 wide receivers, you got John Mechie, you got Xavier Hutchinson, you've got Ben Skronik, you've got some other players on the back end. It's going to be interesting to see, and Robert Woods. It's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. If they carry 6 wide receivers, then I think that's where Andrew Beck or Troy Hairston, their roles, and they don't make the team. And maybe they carry 6 wide receivers and let one of them kind of, between Skronik and Brevin Jordan, maybe that one of them can kind of play a dual role and do that H-back role and things like that. So last one, Robert Woods, time to dress. Yeah, I mean, I've been very vocal. There is absolutely zero reason to move on from Robert Woods right now. Zero reason to. Don't come at me about the additional cap space. It's like 2.9 million additional cap space for Robert Woods. You can find that money elsewhere. You need to keep Robert Woods here for training camp and preseason. It's just simple. What if somebody gets hurt? What if some trade opportunities come up? I don't know. But you've got to keep Robert Woods here for all of training camp. You make that decision at roster cutdown. And, maybe if he's not one of your top 5 or 6 wide receivers, then you release and you move on. It's a business decision. Sorry, Robert. But, maybe you can find somebody that's willing to take on his contract for, I mean, it's no difference for Houston on the cap space perspective, but maybe you can find somebody to take him on for a 6th or 7th round pick. Who knows? But no reason to move on from him. Keep him here. Khalil Davis, dude's going to shock you. Just wait. He showed some flashes last year. He's going to be one of the primary defensive tackles. He's going to get a lot of snaps. I'm excited to see what he can do. He just continually gets better each week. You go back and watch the tape. He got better and better each week of the season up until the end of the year, and I'm excited to see. Beige was asking about Autry, and that was a I went back and looked at, I think I posted on X. I posted some numbers. Did I post it on there? I can't remember if I did or didn't. It may have just been in the group chat. But I went back and looked at his numbers under when Jim Schwartz was the senior defensive assistant in Tennessee. 2021, 2022, when Mike Vrabel was the de facto defensive coordinator. And Jim Schwartz, runs the wide nine system, and which is very similar to what D'Amico runs. And so kind of wanted to see how D'Amico Autry did there. And he really did not play inside like I thought he would. He primarily was on the outside. Let me see if I can find my chart. Give me 1 second here. I thought I had a chart. You know what? I think I just did it in Excel and I shared. Oh, wait, here it is. Yeah, here it is. Let me do screen share. Okay. So this was sack rate and pressure rate for 2021, 2022. Defensive end or interior defensive end, edge rusher and interior. I threw Mario Edwards on here because he was on Tennessee during that time as well. But you see D'Amico Autry here, he pretty high up. I mean, like we talked about with these scatter plots, you draw lines this way to rank. So pretty high up here. Von Miller, Henderson, Justin Houston. So, I mean, he's right up there with John Gennard and Quinnen Williams and Chris Jones and Joey Bosa and Zadar. I mean, he's right up there in those years under Jim Schwartz. He's right up there. Danielle Hunter, our favorite new edge rusher. I mean, he's right up there with a ton of good players. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he's top 15 in pressure rate and sack rate when you combine those together. I mean, I'm excited to see what they do with Autry. I don't know that he'll be shifted around too much. I mean, maybe they find some packages, some NASCAR packages where he's lined up as a defensive interior, but not specifically inside. Maybe, I don't know if you really want him inside of a 3 technique, but, I think it's just going to be interesting. I mean, he's definitely going to he's going to be a good relief pitcher for Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter. I think Nico Autry and Derek Barnett is just fantastic edge rushing depth. And Barnett's a big dude. I think he's a little bit bigger than Autry, and Autry's 285. I think Barnett might be a little closer to 290. So I'm not saying they can slide completely inside, but I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see Ryans cook up some interesting formations with at least 3 of those guys on the field at one time. And last but not least, Pepsi Max question above. Let me go find it, Beige. I saw it and I meant to do something with it and I forgot. All right, there it is. So I always have, and if Ryan Crossingham was here, he would be able to say this, but there's your answer. There's I always have Coke Zeros. I drink way too many of them. I don't even mess with Pepsi stuff. Dr. Pepper, none of that stuff. I don't mess with any of that stuff. No. All right. Well, I think that is going to be it for tonight. We did hit all our talking points. Had some good Q&A. I appreciate the interactions. Like I said, we got the kind of the dead zone of training, of the schedule coming. But I am looking at a few different things on Cap and Trade on the newsletter. So make sure you subscribe. The growth has been fantastic. I finally hit my goal that I wanted to hit by the start of the season and already hit it. So I'm going to try to reset the subscriber goal for a different number. But I'm looking, like I was talking about, looking at the Joe Mixon stuff. I still got some more research to do there. I was talking to a few guys up in Cincinnati. Joe Goodberry, who covers that team, gave me some good insight. I need to go look at some snaps in 2022 to see how he did under center. I was looking at double coverage stuff with Nico Collins, but I kind of pushed that down the list. And then I have one other topic I'm looking at. So, just got a lot of things in the fire. We'll see how it goes. Just a lot of exciting stuff, and we'll push out what we can. So make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. It's free, no cost. I do this out of love and admiration. It's definitely not something that it needs to be paid. I mean, I just do what I can for y'all, but there is a paid option if you do want to support the newsletter. It allows me to, get another subscription. I take any money that comes from the newsletter and it just goes right back into data subscriptions. So pays for like PFF, sports info solutions, fantasy points, stat head. Pays for all those things. So, if you want to support in that manner, go, I think it's like $7.50 a month or $75 a year or something like that. It just helps me get more access to data to provide you more information. So, am working on a new data source with a new vendor. Kind of excited to see how that plays out. Hopefully, get some good news from them in July. And but other than that, I think that's it for tonight. Brandon, appreciate you being here, bud. And it could work from Andrew Brown and the team on the Nico deal. I love Andrew to death, but I think that was pretty much Caserio. I think Caserio just gives Andrew the numbers and says, write the contract. I think Andrew does the draft picks though, which is fun. It's good for him. But Andrew, if you're listening and watching, text me back. You have my number. That is about it. We will call it a night. I hope everybody has a wonderful, if you're a father, happy Father's Day to you. I myself am also a father, so I'll be enjoying myself this weekend. I'm going to throw a brisket on the grill tomorrow morning around 7 a.m., so I'm going to be bright up and early. Just the center cut. I haven't done, it's not a full brisket. It's just the center cut of the flat. So curious to see. It's the first time cooking just the flat and not the point on there as well. So budgeting 7-8 hours cook time. It'd be fun. Got a new grill for Father's Day. Got it like probably about 3 weeks ago. But that was a Father's Day. My birthday's in June as well, so it's a combo gift. No, not a Traeger. So I got a Rectech. I've had a Rectech. We'll go off topic here. I've had a Rectech Bull, the 380, the one that looks like a Weber with a pellet hopper attached to it. It's been a fantastic grill. I've had that for 2 years. I love that thing. That thing is a beast. It's small. It goes from, I think, 220 to, it'll get up to about 750 degrees, so I can smoke a steak, center cut tenderloin. We love cooking those here. Get a center cut from HEB. I'll smoke it at 250 degrees for like an hour and a half, and then pull them off, crank it sucker up to 750, or it's called riot mode. They have a newer model out that'll get up to 1,000 degrees, but it'll get up to like 750, and I'll throw them on there and sear it that way. But I did get a Rectech flagship, so it's 1,100, I think, square inches. It's a big old monster compared to the 380, and I've already had about 4 or 5 cooks on it. It's been phenomenal. I love it. It's a beast. I got the cold smoke box on the side. Let me see if I can pull it up here. Let's see here. We're going to go way off script here. So this is what I have. I've had this for like 2 years, and it's a fun little grill. If you're interested if you want a pellet, but you don't want to spend a ton of money, get you one of those. It is fantastic. But what I did get was the flagship, and this thing is a monster. Love that thing. It's huge. I've just been so ecstatic with it. I'm a big old dork, and it's got a cold smoke box that attaches on the right. So this wintertime, I'm gonna like cold smoke salmon for my wife. She loves cold smoked salmon that's like that. I can do jerky in that box and stuff like that. I tested it out. Like even on the grill on low, it's at like 90 degrees in that smoke box. So I'm really excited to try that out when it cools off. Nothing against Traeger. I don't have anything against them, but I just love Rectech. I've had great luck with them. Their customer service is phenomenal. All stainless steel quality. I only cook for myself. I mean, it's for us. It's 3 or 4 people, 2 kids, but a lot of times it's just for me and my wife. But yeah, I mean, I'll cook brisket. I'll do beef ribs, dino ribs, a lot of chicken, salmon. My daughter loves salmon, so we cook a lot of salmon on the grill, and do a lot of smoked vegetables on the grill. And so I'm excited to have all the extra real estate. Smoked turkey, one of our favorites. So I do a lot. I just don't post about it, but I love, 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 love cooking and grilling. So, and I added a concrete pad to the patio. So first time I ever did concrete by myself. That was a fun job. Did a dry pour. Very first time I've done that. So sorry for the rant of being off topic, but I love talking about grilling and stuff like that. It's a fun passion of mine. I still am getting better at it. Each time I grill, I learn things. Way to make me hungry. I'm sorry, buddy. I know. I'm excited. So I'm going to cook the brisket tomorrow, and then I'm not grilling on Father's Day. Fortunately or unfortunately, maybe. But looks like we're going to get some bad weather Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday here, so I won't be able to do much grilling this week. But yeah, I grill once or twice a week, if not more. I really enjoy being out there and cooking. So, but with that, man, we will call it a night. I appreciate everybody here. I appreciate the interactions. Make sure you hit a like, subscribe to the channel. It's a lot of fun. I'm sorry I'm not as consistent with the videos, but I'm going to try to do a few more this summer. And then when training camp gets here, we will be rocking and rolling. So with that, we will call it a night. And everybody take care. Have a good Father's Day weekend. Be safe. We'll see you.